Welcome to another exciting episode of the Epic Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Brad Sugars, the Chairman and CEO of ActionCOACH, and today we're diving into the minds of some incredible business leaders, uncovering their real stories, strategies, and the secrets behind their victories. It's not just about success, it's about the journey, the hurdles, and turning challenges into opportunities. So let's jump right into it.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another podcast at the Epic Entrepreneurs. My name is Andy O'Brien, and we are powered by ActionCOACH. Today, we have a very special guest, John Courtenay from the UK. Welcome, John.
Hi, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent, excellent. John, well, tell all the listeners out there, let's talk about, well, one, where you're at. Two, let's talk about your business. What do
Okay.
you do?
Well, where I'm at, I'm in the centre of the UK, in the Midlands area, in a pretty village called Knowle, and I live in a 15th century farmhouse. So that's a little bit of background. That's where we're at. That's where I am. And my business is supplying chemicals and alloys to the aluminium industry.
Wow, that is amazing. Amazing. Well, let's jump in because that's going to lead to the top thing. So tell me this. How did you get involved in the aluminum industry?
Okay. Well, I left university with a degree in metallurgy, actually metallurgy specializing in steelmaking, and I joined a company called Proseco, which was a UK-based company, reached about £1 billion turnover at its peak, and this is going back to 1978 or something. They were a brilliant company. I joined them when they were still relatively small and very entrepreneurial, and I grew with them. Which was a fantastic start to my life. I think they gave me my entrepreneurial spirit. But later, going back to around 1989, the part of that company that I worked for was sold to a small American private company, and that didn't work out too great for me, I have to say. When I left for Seco, they'd been owned by Burma Castrol, a British blue chip corporation, for about 3 or 4 years, and they were very strategic. They provided the company with very professional strategic management. And when I had to move to this other company that bought out our particular business unit, I found it uncomfortable, I must say, to move from a blue chip company, top FTSE 100, to a small entrepreneurial company based in the US. We didn't have a lot in common, really, and I stuck with it for about 6 months. And I thought, no, I'd tell you, I was so unhappy. I had to take beta blockers to keep me calm. This is no way to spend the rest of your life. Because I was about 55 at the time, and I decided to leave and start my own business.
I love it. That is amazing. Yeah, it's never good when you have to take meds to keep yourself calm for any
That's not
subject.
sustainable, is it? Definitely not
No,
sustainable.
no, it's not. No, it's not. Well, let's go back a little bit. So, tell us, what are the top three things that have made you successful in your business, and how can people follow in your footsteps?
Okay. Well, when I worked for Faseco, I was always very happy, but every now and then you want to look around for other jobs. And interviewers often said to me, "Well, you're an entrepreneur, really. You should not be working for a big corporation. You should be out on your own." And I never moved because I never had a clear idea. I think the first thing when you want to start a business, go out on your own, you must have a good idea. And it sounds simple, but saying I'm going to copy somebody else, for instance, do something else that somebody else does, I know, make whatever, and I'll go and do the same thing. That's not going to give you a great business opportunity. You really need to have a good idea. You want to offer something that that your marketplace you're dealing in, that they want, the customers want, that's different from what everybody else offers. So I think the first thing is to have a good idea. I'll explain what the idea is, but I'm just saying the steps are you've got to have a good idea.
Love
Not,
it. Love it.
and in this case, the idea was that there are two parts to it. The last job I had in Pacico, I was technical director of their aluminium business, hence the link with aluminium.
Mm-hmm.
And I switched from steel to aluminium technology. And I was involved in this establishing this new business unit that would specialize in Pacico's aluminium business. And we were trying to put it all together. And what we found was that suppliers to the aluminium industry at our part at that time were very much product based. So the one guy selling filters, there'd be another guy selling degassing equipment, another guy selling grain refiners. But these products work together to give the customer what he wants, which is clean metal, a good quality end product. And I thought, what we ought to have is a package, a melt quality package, where these products work synergistically, and whoever's selling it, the sales guy or the technical sales manager, should have a through knowledge that puts these things together. So, when I was at Pacico, we called it the melt quality package. But we never really implemented it. I left it before I felt we'd really got that working. So when I wanted to start a new business, what I wanted to do was take that idea and make it work in practice. We called it MQP, which was the Melt Quality Partnership. We should work on the same idea. So the first idea was to concentrate in this area of melt quality and put a strong and unique package of innovative products together.
Excellent. I love this. Okay, so one thing we forgot earlier, John, what is the name of your business today as you go into the third thing that's made you successful? Because you've talked about the company, and I just don't want to confuse our viewers of what your company is versus what you used to do.
Yes. So the company we're talking about today is called ACT. It's Aluminium Cast House Technologies Limited, and it was a spin-off from the MQP company, which I first started in 2000. I sold 70% of MQP to Chinese investors, to a large Chinese corporation that was in the grain refinement business. So we did well. I'll explain later the importance of having a good exit strategy. And ACT has had some really great ideas, and it was one of these great ideas that we won the Innovation Award at the recent BizX conference. That's why I'm here, because we were the winners in BizX this year, the most innovative company.
Oh my gosh, just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's fresh off the presses a few weeks ago.
It is. I haven't, I was unfortunately, I couldn't make it. And for those of you that don't know what BizX is, we'll make sure that our team puts a link to that. But absolutely phenomenal event. And congratulations, sir. That is a big honor.
Yeah, we were very proud to win this, and it's the first big award that ACT has won. So, shall I tell you what the idea was now in this company?
Yes,
The
please.
product
Yes,
idea. Then I'll move on
absolutely.
to a couple of other things. So, the product idea in this company was something we call batch pilot. And it was a unique product that measures the weight of the liquid metal in a furnace used for casting aluminium. When you produce aluminium, you need to do the primary production in a smelter, and you produce a raw alloy, which is then sent to a cast house where they refine it and they cast the final product, which is slabs and billets, which then go on to downstream manufacturers that turn these slabs and billets into aluminium sheets for making auto bodies, making beer cans, food packaging, or they turn it into extrusions that you use to make, say, window frames, engineering profiles, etc. And part of in this process, you have to melt the furnace excuse me, you have to melt the metal in a furnace. And the furnace
Right.
would have a capacity of around 50 tons of molten aluminium. The structure of the furnace is like a tilting kettle. It's a big tilting device that weighs several hundred tons of superstructure. And the strange thing is that they didn't have an accurate way of measuring the liquid metal that was left in the furnace. And what they used
Wow.
to do, a guy would open the furnace door and look in and say, "Oh, well, it's about 2 tons there, or 5 tons." And this visual measuring system was plus or minus 2 tons, which is not very good.
Yeah, I was
On the
going to
other
say
hand,
plus or minus a couple of cars. That's funny.
yeah,
That is funny. I looked in and it was, I
yeah,
think it's 2 tons. So it's a Volkswagen, a
yeah,
Volvo, a Fiat. Like, how
yeah,
big is it?
yeah. But it might have been 10 tons, in which case it's a truck, To put
Yeah.
it into units we understand. And we saw this need in the industry to have an accurate measuring system, because an accurate measuring system allows them to batch the furnace correctly. Like making metal in a furnace, it's like cooking. Like making a cake. You got a recipe, then you've got to have so much of this element, so much of that element. But if you don't know what was left in the furnace from the previous melt, then you don't know how much of the ingredients you've got to add to make the next melt. What happens is
Right, right.
if your estimation is wrong, then your ingredient addition is wrong. And if your ingredient addition is wrong, then the melt is off spec. And to get it right, you have to hold it in the furnace and do some stuff to it. And this holding process is losing productivity. So if you walk around an aluminium plant, I first came across this, you look around and say, well, why is this furnace standing around for a whole 8-hour shift? Oh, well, it was off spec, we had to correct it. So you can see that's the need for the customer. And with Batch Pilot, it's a way of I'll explain how it works, of accurately measuring the metal weight that allows the customer to improve productivity. So it means they could probably cast 3 to 5 more charges uh, a month, and each charge is worth to the producer in terms of the premium for the melt about 15 to 20,000 pounds. So in other
Oh,
words,
wow.
by not yeah, it's a big deal. By not knowing
That's
their weights
huge.
properly and making mistakes holding the furnace, they run at costs. They can lose 60 to 100,000 pounds worth of production. And our system puts that right, gives them 100% right first time batching. And our system only costs about £100,000, 100 to £150,000. Means the payback is 2 months.
That is amazing. So they automatically get not automatically, but you'd look at 60 days for a return on investment for a capital investment is huge. That is a huge timeline.
It's huge. It's huge. And this technology is unique. We identified the problem, and we found a professor at the University of Chicoutimi, because we had friends in Canada, and this guy was a great
Right.
mathematician. He said, "I can solve this for you. I can give you an algorithm that'll give you the right answer." So how the system works is these furnaces are tilted to pour like a kettle,
Right.
and to tilt it, you need a hydraulic cylinder, and you push the furnace from rest to fully tilted. And then the metal pours out, and we measure the change in pressure in the hydraulic cylinder, and then locate that pressure
Oh,
to the change in weight. So it's clever stuff, and it's accurate. It's accurate to for a 50-ton furnace, we can measure the weight to plus or minus 250 kilos. So that furnace is holding 50,000 kilos, and our system is that sensitive. It can find a weight difference of 250 kilos plus minus instead
oh
of the
my
old
gosh. So
method.
you're
250 kilos, but in the past they're plus or minus 2 tons at best. So you get tremendous
which we already
accuracy.
joked about. Like that's just two of me, or you and I combined is 250 kilos. Like that's not from 50 tons down to that. That is amazing. So just really quickly for those that aren't math wizards out there. So in those hydraulic cylinders with the weight, with the pressure, you're converting that algorithm to wait for that customer, which shows that positive, positive, or if there's going to be a loss based on that, or is
That's
that
right.
built
Yeah,
into
yes,
their?
it's the algorithm that digests the data from the pressure sensor that's measuring the difference in the pressure in the cylinder, and it correlates that to the change in weight in the furnace, and that's where the trick is.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That is
and
amazing. Tell me you have a patent on this.
well, we talked about that a lot. The problem with the patent for a software is you've actually got to disclose the software itself to get a patent,
Yes,
and
yes.
that's
So
fine.
then they have the software.
Then they have the software. It's fine if you can enforce it, but it's very difficult. So we said this is another part of the important part of the strategy, was never to give the algorithm to the customer. So it's completely locked off. The best part is completely independent of the customer's SCADA systems, and they're completely independent from their computer control. It's a standalone unit, and their software is locked in, and they can't have the dongle. They can't have the and their IT department usually complains, "Oh, we must have a copy of the software." We said, "No, sorry." We had to be really
Oh,
tough, but we never
yeah,
gave
yeah.
one away. And to this day, nobody's broke the program. Nobody knows how it works.
I love it. That just comes from all of Brad's books, as the founder of Action Coach, he said it. I've been in this for 15 years, and I have heard Brad say this thousands and thousands of times. Build it once, get paid for a lifetime. So well done, John. That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, tell me this. Okay, so you've talked about your journey from university to the corporate world of the super big companies. You've talked to us about how this product works and the analytics that go with it. But let's shift gears for a minute to you for a second. So you said something earlier, and this is, I think, for all the listeners out there, viewers. Are you ever too old to learn something new?
No, it's important
I
that
well,
you recognise that, because we do you do tend to think that, oh well, I'm so old, so whatever. So, and at some particular age, you say you can't learn. You can always learn. I think when you stop learning, you're not on a good path.
I,
And there's
I
plenty to
love
learn
it.
in the world. I mean, just learning your own computer. I mean, you can tell from my age, I'm not from the computer generation, but I'm pretty good with the computer. I have friends that can't even switch one on.
Yes, do we all? We all like. I've got a 10-year-old grandson that schools me consistently and on how to run my iPad better. But we won't digress into that. But so let's talk about this. So you said that you were 55 in 1989. Did I hear that
Yeah,
correctly?
that's right. Yes.
I love it. Congratulations for breaking the mold and keep on living life and learning. But let's just talk about this for a second. So, in all of this time in building these companies and having the exit strategy and selling, what would you say in this business that you're in today? In that time, what has been your biggest challenge and how did you overcome it?
Okay. Well, I want to just add one thing to the previous section. Sorry.
Please.
Apart from having a good idea, like we've illustrated here, a unique technology, you need good finance in a
Oh,
company.
yeah.
And
Tell us more.
the second innovation we used for both MQP and ACT was what they call invoice financing or factoring. Now, a lot of people haven't heard of it, or if they have heard of it, they believe it's expensive. This is not true. It's your interest rate on the money you borrow is a little bit higher than perhaps taking a loan from the bank. But what happens is um, you don't take a big loan from the bank. What you do is you give them your debtors book. You give them your invoices. They pay you on the day that you issue the invoice, and they recover the money from your customers um, according to the customer's normal payment days. So typically in our industry, customers are paying in 60 to 90 days. But with invoice financing, the bank pays me the day I issue the invoice. So the loan facility is always proportional to the business. As the business increases, then your loan capacity increases automatically with it. So if you're a young entrepreneur, right? What's your first problem is after I've got the idea, how do I finance it? If I go to my
Right,
dad to lend
right.
me a couple of million or something, or go to the bank, that's really tough. Go to the bank; they're not nice. Maybe we shouldn't repeat that, but it's quite hard work to get a loan from the
Well,
bank.
I don't
But
think you're telling anybody anything they haven't heard before, so please preach. Keep going.
oh, good. Okay, I'll keep going then. Okay. So this factoring or invoice financing is really important, or what is important for us to enable us to start a small business with a relatively small capital. I mean, we started with a £25,000 overdraft. I think I had about 50,000 in spare cash starting with. That doesn't go very far in starting a business up. If you get, as soon as you get a million sales, you've got to finance. Being owed
Hmm.
up anything up to half £300,000 at any one point. So invoice finance was our second thing. I think number one, good idea. Number two, a really cool finance system. And I learned that by going to a resource we have in the UK called the City Chamber of Commerce. So in this case, Birmingham Chamber of Commerce. They support businesses, and when I said, "Well, I'm starting my company up. I want to know a bit more about finance." They said, "Oh, well, this is what we recommend for you," and that really helped us enormously. I can't stress that was really important. So that was number two. In terms of challenges, sorry to answer your question.
Yeah.
We've had two big challenges. In 2008, um, the recent financial crash, the big crash due to the subprime mortgage crisis hit, and I think on December 2008, we're expecting to have a record year the following year, we're expecting to sell 20 batch pilots and loads of our fluxes and things. And on January 1, when this crisis really struck, we had no orders for 3 months because you know
Wow.
it's like a train. Customers are buying say 20 tons every month of our flux, and when they're overstocked, they just stop. So no more orders for 3 months.
Oh.
And with batch pilots, which is a productivity tool, people said, well, the aluminium price has crashed now because of the recession. So, we can't sell the aluminium we can make. So we don't need a device that's going to help us make more. So no market
Right.
for it. So we had to live with that. And, well, we did. I think the invoice finance facility certainly helped because we weren't stuck with a big loan that we had to repay. It was all related to the debtors book. And I think, the rest was just being a tough business person, really, having to weather the storm, keep your eye on the future, on the big objective where you're going to, believing that this pause won't last forever. When you have a crash, the economy always rebounds. I follow Ken Fisher, who's quite a famous American financier that owns Fisher Wealth,
Hmm.
and I invest with him actually, and he's very clear on this. When you have a market crash, you have to hold your nerve, and you have to believe. History teaches you it'll rebound. It might be a year, it might
Hmm.
be 2 years. So you've got to hold your nerve, batten down the hatches, don't spend any money, don't borrow any money. Make sure that you look after your good customers. They're going to pay you on time. Don't take any
Right.
chances, and pull through, which is what we did. So
Well,
the first challenge. Yeah, that was tough.
yeah. Well, I got to ask this question since we live in such an economy of instant gratification. What you just walked through about hold your ground and your nerve. So when you look at the world of instant gratification and not spending, and what would be your best advice for those folks that don't have that type of nerve, that don't have the wherewithal. They have a great idea, they have it, and they've hit a tough spot. What would you say to them if they were sitting on this call today in regards to that?
Well, if it's a really good idea, its value doesn't change. See what I mean? The fact that you run out of customers in the short term is a factor of the market, but the idea remains valid. What made it work for you before the crash will make it work for you again. And even during a recession period, typically only a couple of years, it's still got added value compared to other products on the marketplace. Although it's going to be tough, I think you have to have strong belief in your offering, in your product mix, in what you're doing, and just find a way to hang in there, hang in there until the good times return, because they will inevitably return.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's excellent advice for all of us out there. So tell me this: how did you personally have to grow, or what did you most have to learn that helped you create your success in this endeavor?
Oh, that's a good question. You got me on pause there. um, well,
Good.
one thing one thing is you have to keep learning. Because you have
Mm-hmm.
a bit of initial success. You should never rest on your laurels. We had a program in MQP to always have looking for new innovative products. You have one innovative product, gets the business started. Um, Innovation and products, the people will be well aware of the product life cycle. So you have a great idea, a great product, and it might last 10 years. Some products go on forever, 20 years. But nonetheless, um, uh, as the product ages during the product life cycle, competition gets tougher and you have to innovate to stay ahead. So, you have one good product, you could either further innovate in the same area or go and find another product that's going to go to the same customer base.
I love
And
this.
that then gives you a chance to keep your earnings at a good level. Because competition's tough. That's how capitalism works. When you have a good idea, you make lots of money in the early days when you've got such a differential. You can charge what you like, frankly speaking, but people catch up with you, and then competition plays. It becomes uh, a quarterly Dutch auction sometimes with customers. I've got 3 suppliers now who gives me the lowest bid. So when you get in that
Right.
situation, if you can, the best thing is to get out of it and go and find another product where it's unique again, or upgrade what you have. So in MQP, we made constant improvements in the existing products. In ACT, we've had several different innovations in different fields. So batch pilot is one, and that's still unique because we hung on to the all important algorithm, so it's as unique as it was 20 years ago, which is great. Fortunate there, but other products like our flux products, we've recently licensed a new technology from somebody else that gives us a new feature in the flux that makes it much more effective for very small, very fine oxides, which people are interested in if they're making the highest quality aluminium. So it's the process that matters, not the detail. The process is to constantly learn, constantly innovate, update what you have. If that isn't, you run out of updates on what you have, go find something else so that you've got another good product.
I love that. That is the greatest message ever, people. Hear it. Keep innovating, keep learning. I love it. All right. So here's a question. I'm going to go off book for a second. So what would be the best advice you would go back and give your 25-year-old self?
I wish I started business earlier. I was too comfortable. I worked for a nice company. They were good to me, and by the time I got a couple of promotions, if a promotion slowed down, you start to look around. I looked around, but still, I like my mother company. They were good to me, but I could have started this business. I could have started when I was 25, for instance. I think you need to get some, experience under your belt before you head off into the real world, really. So, working for somebody else, I think for some years, getting qualified, of course. By the time you're 25, if you've got the entrepreneurial spirit in you and you've got your idea, then it's a good time to start. The sooner you start, the sooner you make more money. And you could say, in a sense, it's quite difficult to make money working for somebody else.
Yeah, it's hard to build wealth when you're working for somebody else. No
Right.
question about it. All right, so
And
you have,
yep.
go ahead. I apologize. No,
No,
keep
no,
going. I
no. That
apologize.
was it, really. Go on.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. So hopefully that they'll edit out my little mistake there. But let's look at this for a minute. Obviously, you've had a storied career. You've had great success. Let's talk about your business coach for a minute. And why did you get one? Why? I mean, somebody that started multiple businesses, worked for these Fortune 500 companies. What drew you into the world to grab a coach?
Okay. The reason was when I worked for my main employer, which is for Pico, who I loved and worked for 35 years for, you're in a large group of people at a senior level, and you could share experience with each other. So you were learning within the organization, and this is very enriching. You can walk down the corridor and speak to senior managers in other fields in the business, and we can talk about all these experiences we have now, about innovating and finance. Um, but when you start a business absolutely from scratch, I remember, by the way, this business I started from scratch. My first order after 18 months of trying was for £387. That's about $500. And we were overjoyed.
Money is money.
Money's money. So, sorry, I lost my track there.
Oh, we were talking about why did you get a coach? And you were talking
Why do you
about
get
the
a coach?
corridor,
Yeah, yeah, I
talking
got
to
a
senior
coach. Yeah,
managers.
so sorry. Yeah,
No,
when
don't
you
be.
work on your own, you're really isolated. You see, you can't. You got yourself to talk to, and in this first stage, I think we only had there's me, and then in year two we had a couple of other employees, and they're quite junior in capacity. They don't have a great industrial experience that you can share with. And what attracted me to Action Coach is they have lots of experience, and you can join an Action Coach team and meet other business people in your same situation. The beauty of BizX, for instance, is I think there were 2,000 delegates at the BizX conference, and there are probably 500 different businesses there. You're sitting on a table with three or four other successful business people, and you can share your experience. So then you've got all the advantages of being in a big corporation without being in a big corporation. So,
Oh, I love it.
yeah, and it can provide you the kind of professional support because she's got good context. She helped us with HR support was one thing. In particular, it was very successful. But a number of things. You can ask her. I really need some legal help. I need some support in HR, and she can point you in the right direction. Loads of contacts, and that was really helpful.
Oh,
That's
I
number.
love this.
Yeah, I think that's number one. And number two, she's your interlocuteur, as the French would say. She sits on your shoulder and asks you the questions perhaps you should be asking yourself.
Excellent. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. All right. So, last question. This has been a phenomenal interview. I love your journey and especially the of all the extensive learning and how you just keep going. And there's a lot of people that would say retirement is on the horizon, but I would say it's rewirement. What's next? So here's the question that I always ask. What is the top piece of advice today you would give another entrepreneur?
I think the biggest thing, I didn't mention it before, really, I think the most important thing is self-belief. That'll carry you through.
I love
and
it. Yeah, there's a
it was very good on that. One of the things that the Action Coach is always presenting is they get successful people, very often sports people, that tell you about their journey, and it always comes down to the same thing: having a self belief that I can really achieve this. I'll give you an example. Recently, I went to one of Anna's sessions, and they brought in four school mums, good respect to school mums. They ran the kids to school and stuff, and they used to get bored waiting around for them. I thought, well, let's go and do a bit of rowing. Okay, so they started rowing on a local pond or something, and I don't know how they came to it, but one day they got together and said, we think we should row across the Atlantic. and,
you have all of my
and
attention.
And these four school mums, ordinary people, just said, "Well, we're going to do it." And they got a plan. They stuck to the plan. They got expert help. They trained for 2 years, and they spent, I think it was 47 days rowing across the Atlantic, and rowing in succession. The four of them rotating on, I think, a 6-hour shift basis. And it just shows, and the point of it was, it shows what humans can do when they really believe and they follow through. And that's what you need to run a company. You're rowing the Atlantic sometimes.
I am going to look that up when we're done with that. That is amazing. But you're absolutely
Yeah.
correct, right? It's absolutely correct. So, John, this has been a great conversation for me. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I have learned an enormous amount for you. Anything you'd like to add before we sign off for the day?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. You brought the best out of me, I like to say, and I really enjoyed the interview. And if it helps anybody, I'm really, really pleased. It's just my experience in my life, and Action Coach has helped get the best out of me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, John. This is another edition of the Epic Entrepreneurs podcast, powered by Action Coach. And again, thank you so much, John, for your time today and your wisdom and helping that next generation of entrepreneurs move forward in their business. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's epic conversation here on Epic Entrepreneurs. Huge thanks to our amazing guest for their pouring their heart into sharing their journey. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, share it, or hit that bell. But until next time, let's make sure you keep dreaming, take massive action, and stay epic.